Good afternoon and welcome to Schmucker Art Gallery's fourth virtual gallery talk of the semester. I'm Shannon Egan, director of the Schmucker Art Gallery, and I imagine we are all a bit Zoom fatigued at this point in the semester. So I'm just really grateful that you all are here and have logged on this afternoon and are ready and willing to connect. Before I introduce you to Professor Jerry Philogene, I just want to briefly walk you through the space in case you haven't had an opportunity to come into the gallery. And if you are a current on-campus Gettysburg College student, faculty, or staff, you are welcome to come into the gallery. We're open through next Friday, November 20th, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4. So I will just share my screen with you. I also just wanted to give you all just again like a sense of the scale of the works, so that you all will be able to kind of see what Professor Philogene is showing kind of in relationship to how it's hanging on the wall. So Professor Philogene's talk is held in conjunction with the current exhibition we have up in Schmucker Art Gallery titled I Beseech You, Women, Art, Politics, and Power. And all of the artists in the exhibition examine complicated issues related to identity, environmental activism, politics, and power in art. The accompanying exhibition catalog includes essays by Gettysburg College students who spent all of 2019 and 20, this fall of 2019, spring of 2020, researching the context for each of the works of art and also discussing the artist's impulses for activism. So if you would like a hard copy of the catalog, please write your address in the chat box. I'd be happy to mail one to you. The exhibition was intended to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. And the artists in the exhibition do not just celebrate the voices of women in a democracy, but they also acknowledge the continued fight for equal rights, social justice, and action about climate change. There are works by prominent women artists featured through here. And so this is one shot that you would see walking into the gallery. We have a work by Kara Walker on the wall that Professor Philogene, I think, is going to mention later on. Posters by the Guerrilla Girls. I mentioned these are embroideries by Judy Chicago we have in our collection. Prints by Allison Sarr on loan from Lafayette College Art Gallery. And other prints back here. And I also want to thank, and this is a short film on loan by the artist Anna Mendieta. So I want to thank the co-sponsors of this exhibition and of our programs, the Department of Africana Studies, the Art and Art History Department, Peace and Justice Studies, Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Environmental Studies, the Office of Multicultural Engagement, and the Women's and LGBTQIA+ Resource Center for making these events possible. I also want to thank the generous donors and lenders to the exhibition, including Dr. Deborah Smith, the Robin Wagner Michael Berkner Acquisition Fund, the Lafayette College Art Gallery, Dickinson College's Trout Gallery, the Colby College Museum of Art, and artist Jessica Houston. I think I have one more slide that you can get a sense of the show. And so now I am delighted that Jerry Philogene has accepted our invitation to share her scholarship on these kind of related topics with us. Jerry Philogene is Associate Professor of American Studies and Africana Studies at Dickinson College, and her research interests include interdisciplinary American cultural and art history, modern and contemporary Caribbean art history and visual arts, with an emphasis on the Francophone Caribbean, Black cultural politics, and the theories of the African diaspora. Her articles have appeared in Small Acts, a Caribbean journal of criticism, Bomb magazine, Contemporary French and Francophone Studies, Radical History Review, Mellon, the Multi-Ethnic Literature of the United States, and the Journal of Haitian Studies, among others. And she has written numerous catalog essays too, and her most recent essay on contemporary Haitian art appears in the catalog for the traveling exhibition titled Relational Undercurrents, Contemporary Art of the Caribbean Archipelago. And she was co-editor of a special issue of Small Acts in March of 2017 that focused exclusively on the work of women artists from the Caribbean and the diaspora. She's had an incredibly busy last few years. Hasn't been back in Carlisle much, it seems. In 2017, 2018, she was a Humanities writ large visiting faculty fellow at Duke University, where she worked on her book manuscript called The Socially Dead, An Improbable Citizen, Theorizing Visual Transformations of Haitian Citizenship. Then in the summer of 2019, she was the Mellon Bruce Visiting Senior Fellow at the Center for the Advanced Studies of the Visual Arts, which is at the National Gallery of Art. And during this fellowship, Professor Philogene began her research for her monograph on mid-century Caribbean modernist artist Luce Tournier. She is now co-curating an exhibition on contemporary drapo Vodou, and a textile Haitian artist named Myrlande Constant, is that right? Mm-hmm. To open at the Fowler Museum at the University of California, Los Angeles in the fall of 2022. I just want to remind you that this presentation this afternoon is being recorded and will be made available on Gettysburg College's YouTube channel. We will have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of Dr. Philogene's presentation. And if you would prefer to not be on video, please type your questions in the chat box. I'll be reading and moderating the questions at the end, but if at any point you want to think of a question and want to type it, please do so in the chat box. And now, please join me in giving a virtual hand clap and a warm welcome to Jerry Philogene. So I'm going to stop my share.
Good.
And make sure you can share too.
Good.
Not seeing it yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
that's
looks
great. Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. So first I'd like to thank Shannon Egan and for inviting me to come and speak with you all today and share some of my work with you today. And of course, also I'd like to thank Leslie Castile for making it possible and dealing with all the coordination for my visit. And of course, and as well, the students who worked on this wonderful exhibition. I had a chance to see the exhibition. So I congratulate you all for the wonderful work that you put in putting this exhibition together, as well as the wonderful work that you did in terms of the catalog. I truly enjoyed reading the catalog, and thank you very much. So congratulations to you all. So in my presentation today, I'll share with you works by 3 women artists that I have been very interested in within the last few years. I share their work with you because I think in many ways they mirror some of the issues addressed by many of the artists in the exhibition, I Beseech You, Women, Art, Politics, and Power. Issues that I hope will be clear in my presentation. And also these artists, like many of the artists in the exhibition, were not included in shows and were not considered contemporary artists until they too fought for a space at the table. I look forward to the discussion period when we can have a larger conversation about some of the points that I've made today, and of course, any clarifying questions. All right, so I'll begin. In his compelling study, Diasporic Citizenship, Haitian Americans in Transnational America, Michel Laguerre suggests a re-examination and reconfiguration of the definitions of the diasporic citizenship to better reflect transnational movements and the lives of those who've been marked by migration. Laguerre contends that this definition must take into consideration the residual effects of globalization, the experiences produced by inhabiting multiple locations and geographic spaces, as well as the cultural productions of those spaces. Echoing Laguerre's assertion and examining the cultural complexities of diasporic artistic production, For this presentation, in part, I want to call attention to the dynamic nature of visual production by exploring selective works of 3 artists of Haitian descent: Pascal Monet, Vladimir Sibyl Charlier, and Sacha Huber. I highlight these 3 artists because of the ways in which they create visual dialogues while working in and through cross-cultural aesthetics and practices that illuminate the complexities of gendered identities, historical memories, and the materiality of artistic practice. I see these concerns in many of the artists in the exhibition who've created works that we can understand as being both personal and political. Furthermore, this presentation is an exploration engaged with a broad, more complex Caribbean diasporic visual vocabularies that take into consideration the quotidian nature of the personal, as we see in the work of Anna Mendieta, the intricate nature of materials, as we see in the work of Judy Chicago, and the penetrating nature of the works that we see in Emma Amos and Zoe Charlton. So, let me just, there we go. There we go, great. Okay, so both born through creative processes and interpretations of memories that reside in a knowing of Haiti that is both conceptual and representative of an actual place, and at the same time conceiving of an idea, their artworks provided new avenues for thinking about portraiture, imagery, and layered narratives as they are influenced and embedded in history. The work that we're seeing now is a piece by Pascal Monet called La Dette, The Debt. These avenues are cultivated through the effective tensions between established artistic genres, portraiture and sculpture, formal artistic styles, conceptual and realism, and discursive modes of creative production, collage, and assemblage. Like the diverse artists presented in this exhibition, Huber, Monet, and Sibyl do not share any prescribed or specific medium, preferring to experiment with divergent forms, media, and artistic traditions. As contemporary artists of the Haitian diaspora, however, what they do share is a desire to express the multiple vantage points that converge and create diasporic Haitian aesthetics. The piece you're looking at right now is called L'Ange de la Résurrection, The Angel of Resurrection. This is also by Monet. This piece that you're looking at now is by Vladimir Sibyl Charlier, Basket of Women. And this is a series by Sacha Huber called Shooting Back. And there are 3 parts, and I'll show you, we'll talk about them in a few. So through a series of imaginative framings, Monet, Sibyl, and Huber engage in a visual lexicon that highlights the complexities of history, memory, and the normative categories of gender while navigating the slippery slopes of transnational identities. Working with paper and book pages to create collages affords Harlem-based Sibyl the opportunity to bring together recognizable, iconic images and ordinary materials that do not necessarily appear cohesive. Born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, Monet public kinetic sculptures or meditative processes that combine a spiritual quality with ocular splendor. Unlike traditional portraiture created in such unconventional mediums as paints, inks, and oils on canvas or paper, Huber uses staples and discarded plywood. She pushes the envelope of portraiture while playing with material and challenging the 2-dimensionality of painting. What we can decipher from these portraits is not the realistic rendering or individual subjects, but the stories and histories that are embedded in what the images represent and what we imagine they represent. For the Swiss Haitian artist Huber, Haiti has never been an experience, a lived experience, only something imagined by listening to the stories of her mother and her aunt. As a multidisciplinary artist trained in graphic design, her work ranges from the conceptually inspired to the formal use of materials in a painterly fashion to large-scale, site-specific installations that stem from organic and fluid processes of aesthetic production. These pieces that we're looking at right now are part of her ongoing series, Shooting Back, Reflections on Haitian Roots, consisting of 3 portraits of individuals who've marked the history of Haiti: Christopher Columbus, Francois Duvalier, and his son, Jean-Claude Duvalier. Using a semi-automatic stapling gun and approximately 100,000 staples, she punctures the grooved surface of the discarded plywood to create large-scale textured portraits. Unlike traditional portraiture, which aims to create a likeness of an individual, in Shooting Back, Hubert signals the brutality that arrived when Columbus's landing on the Isle of Hispaniola through her use of the sharp metal paint, in quotes, on the coarse, uneven surface of the wood. Equally, the heinous dictatorship of the Duvalier regime is palpable in the piercing stapled ruptures of the dense, rejected wood. It is as if the traditional methods of portraiture are not sufficient to visualize the traumatic histories that are associated with the Duvalier and Columbus. Through a keen sense of composition finery, Hubert employs the classic artistic genre of portraiture by exploring the possibilities and nuances of a particular new art material, entering ever so slightly into the realm of sculptural elements that are shared in Monet's kinetic sculptural mobile. By substituting materials such as oil, ink, and paint used on the porous surface of the canvas, Hubert uses staples to underscore the ways in which the epidermis, the top layer of the skin, represented by the thick density of the wood, is an absorber of the memories of the past that influence the present and the future. For Hubert, skin serves as a repository for the projection of collected memories and traumas. Like Hubert, who challenges the assumptions that portraits are truthful representation of the subject, in L'Ange de la Résurrection, Monet explores the materiality and possibility of non-traditional materials through an acute sense of spatial alignment of delicately balanced components. Her mixed media mobiles installations are concerned with representation and the materiality of the fleshy surface that make up the visage. Monet departs from traditional portraiture to create a visually stimulating body of work using glittering beads, sparkling crystals, and full pearls purchased from a defunct bridal store in Haiti, ornately held together by wires and steel. These delicate materials come to form the shape of heads of her friends and family. This attention to parts of the body that have meaning for the artist is what I see in the works of Ana Mendieta. Her Silueta series, which she began in Oaxaca, Mexico, when she visited indigenous sites in Oaxaca, they demanded an engagement from the audience in the meaning-making process. They confront us with the historical and cultural legacies of dehumanizing representations of the female body, and especially the female body of color. In her films, performances, and multimedia works, Mendieta offers an opportunity for us as viewers to investigate the artistic capacity for liberatory discourse, to imagine a world that is created on the premise that female bodies, Black and brown female bodies, are simultaneously complex, nuanced, multi-layered, powerful, and whole. Combining the compositional skills of a painter with the technical skills of assemblage artists, Hubert creates complex and layered historical narratives by combining different materials. The effect is dramatic. The rich, luxurious silver of the staples give off a sheen as the staples form the facial features of Duvalier père, father, and Duvalier's son, fille, adding a rich patina splendor to the pieces. The importance of light is also paramount in The Angel of Resurrection, which sits up high, elegantly among branches of trees or from the gallery ceiling, as we're seeing here. As it spins, we see the back of the mask, an intricate and beautiful assemblage of 4 gemstones, steel and wire, as light passes through the steel and wire to surround the space with eerie dancing shadows. The light that bounces off the piece of glass and crystal create an almost animated object. Monet provocatively blends the element of craft and fine art to create a sculptural piece that delicately moves and shimmies in space, radiating light and shadows to explore the continuum between spirituality and transformation, elements that are fundamental to the Black diasporic experience. Like Monet's interest in the image rests not so much in who they are, what they are, but what they tell us and what they force us to remember. Similarly to Carrie Mae Weems' piece, "Tell me, I beseech you, when I cast my vote to you, did I cast it to the wind?" Monet's desire is not to create an exact replica of the sitter. Instead, her goal is to capture the expression of the sitter as at the exact moment his or her face shaped the mold. Here I want to signal Weems and Hubel's and Monet's astute use of the aesthetic strategy of representation, at once to suggest it is a form of artistic practice in description and a form of symbolic meaning, both of which pertain to the relationship of art and politics. In Weems' piece, what we imagine is a spectrally presence of bodies that once lived and died on that ship. In Huber's piece, discarded plywood and the sharp surface of commonplace staples come together as reminders of a violent past, revealed as politics, economics, and social issues are avowed and placed onto individual bodies, where they reside on some symbolically and on others literally. In other words, what is subtly emphasized in Shooting Back by the markings made on the wood by the staples are the discursive powers of history and trauma, as they are written on the epidermis and manifested on the corporeal. What is remembered when Black people gaze upon "Tell me, I beseech you, when I cast my vote to you, did I cast it to the wind?" are memories of the Middle Passage, displacement, globalization, and how their radical uncertainties are lived on their bodies. In Huber's work, the painstaking and fastidious nature of work is framed within the dialect of meaning. The physical act of shooting a staple gun to draw these portraits is a metaphoric shooting back at the tragic history that is part of Haiti's legacy. The physical, laborious nature of the work adds another layer of meaning. Alone, each portrait is forceful. However, when shown together, they make visible the brutal nature of colonialism and dictatorship and the historical and global impact of these men. A visual representation of the subject is what portraiture seeks to communicate, often through lighting, posing, use of symbols and materials, as well as through the artist's own formal and stylistic approaches. What is clear is that through portraiture, the face is a site where identity is legible, history can be read, and experiences are decipherable. Monet's goal can be understood perhaps as an interplay between incomprehensibility and, on the other hand, decipherability on the other. I'm sorry, between incomprehensibility on the one hand and decipherability on the other. We can determine by the shape of the mobile that it is the shape of a young person's head. In this case, a young boy named Antoine. He can also be one of the many nameless and anonymous faces of bodies that line the streets of Haiti after the catastrophic earthquake in 2010. It can also be the shape of the head of the many women who fought for the right to vote and continue to fight for political voice. Through their use of non-traditional art materials, Hubert and Monet highlight the deep-rooted connections between the body, memory, and history. The use of non-traditional materials is also part of the work of Vladimir Sibylle Charlier. Sybil is influenced by both, she goes by Sybil, even though her last name is Charlier. Sybil is influenced by the textural elements of the novel, Alice in Wonderland, as well as its fantastical and imaginative gestures. She's drawn, taped, photographed, and stenciled various gendered art historical references on pages that come from the chapter in the book titled "The Rabbit Sends in Little Bill," and a caucus race and a long table. This is an engaged, textured, and multi-layered artwork that invites us to ask, what does it mean to carry memory? Through her pointed use of mixed media collage, Sibyl presents a dense constellation of images and histories through which she allows herself to engage with Western art traditions, all the while picking and choosing how she places these histories and images to fit her own Black Caribbean diasporic self. Sibyl's artwork asks us to question not only the notion of gender, but also the myth and fables that are associated with the creation of gendered identities, as well as a definition of female beauty. In part, Basket of Women, which is the piece that we're looking at right now, is about the difficulties of defining and coming to terms with complex identities in a postmodern world where gender and racial identities are not simply written on the body, nor can they be determined through the visual. The images in Basket of Women come together as a composite portrait, a fascinating exploration of the creative processes played out in the fragmented spaces of assemblage and bricolage at the nexus of what Gina Ulysses calls rassemblage, a bringing together of disparate materials to form cohesive ideas. This is also what we see at Emma Amos's How Time Flies. In the essay in the catalog for the exhibition, Smeltzer, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name, Smeltzer's essay on Emma Amos, the author inserts a passage from the New York Times art critic Holland Cotter's tribute to Amos at the news of her death. I loved that quote, and I wanted to quote a few lines more lines from that article. Cotter writes, the fact that Miss Amos' art complicates rather than narrows notions of identity, racial and otherwise, makes it pertinent to the present moment when binary thinking of all kinds is under scrutiny. At the same time, her career-long belief in art as a form of ethical resistance carries new weight when the promises of the civil rights era seem again under threat. It's always been my contention, she writes, Cotter quotes her, that for me, a Black woman artist, to walk into a studio is a political act. It is the same political act, end quote. It is the same political act, the act of agency that I see threaded throughout the works of the artists that I'm presenting to you today, but also the artists that are in the exhibition at this moment. Basket of Women, using various conventional Western art history images of women. We have Venus, an image of Venus de Milo. We have Edgar Degas' Dancer, an image of Paul Gauguin's young Tahitian girl, the wing of the Nike of Samothrace, a Japanese illustration, and two African masks that are held together by white artist tape and white string and beads. I'm sorry, white string and thread, as you see right here. Underneath the images are enlarged pages from Sibyl's favorite childhood book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, written in 1865 under the pseudonym Louise Carroll. The well-known tale is of young Alice who falls down a rabbit hole and enters into a fantasy world populated by anthropomorphic creatures. At the bottom center of Basket of Women is a black and white photograph of Sibyl, a 4-year-old Sibyl, taken by her father. For Sibyl, Alice's fantastical adventures resonate on a personal level. They draw on her childhood memories and function as useful metaphors to contextualize her experiences as an individual living in a capricious world of the Haitian diaspora. A world like Alice's is filled with unpredictabilities, yet anchored by creativity. For Amos, How Time Flies is not so much personal as it is historical, political, and cultural. Strips of traditional African textile float in space surrounded by the drawn portraits of two women who we cannot categorically define and determine their racial identity. But we can assume that some of them are connected to the photos, that somehow they're connected to the photos of the Black man at the bottom left who dangles from a tree, neck broken, as well as the other 3 black and white photos that tell us of happier times when Black people could celebrate modernity. By placing together what at first glance may seem to be desperate iconic images, Sibyl examines bicultural experiences that speak to the coexistence and possibilities of difference. In the lower part of the text from Alice Adventures in Wonderland, outlined by the artist Tate to take the shape of the basket where feminism, where feminist tropes from art history reside in a patchwork fashion. As the layers of personal history and art historical conventions link together, they create unique non-literal narratives that yield revelations and reflections. Like peeking from beneath the pieces of rice and vellum paper, the collage operates as a meditative space of artistic practice and histories that act as connecting tissues between the Haitian self and the American other. Aligning her young self with the young Alice, aligning her young self with the young Alice allows Sibyl, quote, the liberty to claim seamlessly the bicultural experience. The work is very much about the poetry and absolute uncumbered conceptual liberty of childhood and empowering myself to construct a mirror for my cultural experiences. This is a quote in a conversation I had with her. The quality of the kind of bricolage and assemblage quality of the basket of women, ink drawing laid over rice paper, then laid over vellum, and then laid again over the machine manufactured papers of a novel patched together by artist tape, while still allowing each layer to be seen, speaks to the important features of Sibyl's work and her oeuvre in a large part, the idea of layering. Layering functions here as both technical and metaphorical, as a formal strategy that mirrors and enacts the artist's profound sense of Caribbean identities written over manuscripts, written over material, written over Western ideology. Arranged in a grid-like pattern, the pages are chosen purely for their visual effects in a juxtapositioning to other images and arranged so there is a symbolic meaning beyond what is in the text. Instead, Sibyl is interested less in the juxtaposition of different elements than in the relationship between surface, textures, and what lies underneath, between, and within. Moreover, the layering, abstraction, the manipulation of text presents certain material complexities of Black life under worldly conditions of diaspora. Perhaps it is the meaningful decorative texture elements of Sibyl's collage that we can explore the under-recognized history of the expressive Black female form in visual culture. Therefore, it is the fragmented yet structural pictorial space similar to Hubert's stapled portraits that Sibyl expands the concept of portraiture as a formal process, one that implies signification, if not simply representation. What connects their work is a deft attention to compositional strategies that are steeped in formalism and the materiality of contemporary art practices. At the same time, they're concerned conceptually with the cross-cultural dialogues and transnational connections. As transnational individuals living in transcultural spaces, Hubert in Switzerland, Monet in Paris, Sibyl in New York, they use disparate sources, and draw on their experience and knowledge of multiple cultures to offer alternative visions of visual art practices. While each has specific cultural references and have lived or currently live in different locales, Monet, Hubert's, and Sibyl's work, like the work of the artists in the exhibition, travel across language and cultural barriers to come together in a cultural composition of the Caribbean and its various diasporas. They're engaged in exploring their cross-cultural heritage and hybrid identities that are layered in a visual creolization, a Creole cut and mix. They provide us with inventive tools to think about the innovative creative forms as inquiries that can inspire a true rethinking of the textual, of the material, of the allegory, and of the visual. In her iconic essay, Uses of the Erotic as Power, delivered at the 4th Berkshire Conference on the History of Women at Mount Holyoke College on August 25th, 1978, Audre Lorde offered a reconceptualization of the erotic as, and I quote, an assertion of a life force of women, of that creative energy empowered, the knowledge and use of which we are now reclaiming in our language, our history, our dancing, our loving, our work, our lives, end quote. In Lorde's view, the erotic is intimately related to the spiritual and the political. To be effective, the spiritual and the political must be connected by a bridge of art, a bridge of the visual, a bridge of the aesthetic, of the erotic and of the sensual. Because of this, women who are empowered by the erotic are dangerous to systems that oppress them. For Lorde, a self-identified Black lesbian warrior poet, recognizing the use of the erotic as a source of empowerment and self-knowledge allows for a refined capacity to reject terms of oppression that deny women of color and deny women, in particular, the sources for transformative power. This transformative power is echoed in the quote by renowned artist Elizabeth Catlett in the catalog. This transformative expressive power is expressed in the quote by renowned artist Elizabeth Catlett in the essay for the catalog. The quote reads, we can learn from Black women they've had to struggle for centuries. They feel that we have much more to offer to express, that we should demand to be heard and demand to be seen, because we know and feel and can express so much, contribute so much aesthetically, end quote. While this refusal to deny the erotic as a life force, a source of joy in the works of Monet, Sibylle Hubert, and the women in the exhibition. In complex ways, Monet, Sibylle, and Hubert challenge conventional ideas of art practices, gendered realities, and explore the global realities of power and politics of the Black diaspora, of the Black artistic diaspora. For these creative aesthetic interventions, Pascal Monet, Vladimir Sibylle Charlier, and Sacha Hubert warrant our attention and further exploration. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Jerry. That was wonderful. It was really wonderful. I am delighted to say that I have a couple of questions to read to you from our audience.
Okay, great.
So again, we are a relatively intimate group, so please don't hesitate, the rest of you, to kind of chime in or send me a chat. So this first question is, in the plywood staple portraits, what makes up the hair in the portraits?
Let's go to that.
Yeah, the scalp appears to be indented punches.
Let's see, which one would probably be a better one to look up here. Yeah, they're also staples. But there are areas where she's carved also into near the staples to kind of further show the kind of shadowing, the depth of the hair. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the next question, I think you answered, but just to kind of reiterate that these are she asks, are these Haitian artists living in Haiti or in diaspora communities elsewhere?
Excellent. Let's see. So let me start here. This is Pascal Monet. She lives in Paris. She's living in Paris at the moment. Also Pascal. This is Vladimir Sibylle Charlier. Sibylle lives in New York. She's in Harlem, New York. And this is Hubert, Sacha Hubert, who lives in Switzerland.
Okay, yeah. And with this one, so I had a question too. Of course, we all know Christopher Columbus, but the portraits of the father and the son, can you tell us a little bit more about who they are? And again, maybe even that dialogue, that to choose these contemporary portraits and then to also choose Christopher Columbus. Like what other portraits is she making, or how are they talking to each other?
Sure. What this is an ongoing series, and I think these were the first 3 that she started doing. And I think what she wanted to do was basically show the history of Haiti, the kind of traumatic history of Haiti. So beginning with the image of Christopher Columbus. So beginning with this idea that Columbus discovered Hispaniola. But in that discovery, what occurred to indigenous populations, and so wanting to kind of talk about that horrific, traumatic moment that we can read contemporarily as well. So these two portraits are images of Duvalier Père, Francois Duvalier, and Jacques Duvalier, who were dictators in Haiti.
Okay.
Or dictators in Haiti from the 1950s up until the 1980s, and similar to Columbus, contributed to the death of many individuals who resisted their dictatorship. So putting these three images together, she basically encapsulates the kind of the horrific historical moment in the history of Haiti at a time. She continues to do these staple gun portraits, and she has one of Malcolm X, who has one of Martin Luther King. So she is using this genre, if you will, this medium in different to create different portraits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I imagine, I mean, on the one hand, usually with portraits, and I think too in the exhibition, there was, Margaret Burroughs' like beautiful portrait of Mary Dickinson, and Catlett's, basically portrait of Tubman, that it's about kind of celebrating the person, or honoring the person that you're creating the portrait of. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that she's complicating that in also choosing to honor, I mean, not, maybe honor is not the right word, but commemorate or depict much more problematic individuals.
Right. Well, I think that the idea of portraiture is the idea that we are creating portraits to commemorate, to honor individuals. And this is a kind of tongue-in-cheek, if you will, right? These individuals are not individuals who we should honor because of the devastating impact that they've had on the nation. But at the same time, we also imagine portraiture to be done in, in traditional mediums, right? In traditional mediums of oils, of watercolors, of, screen prints, etc. Here she's using staples, staple gun. So even the act of pushing the staple into the plywood itself is a kind of visceral, angry, if you will, right, process, which can be slightly different than the lighter way of painting, the lighter way of painting. So
I love that. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, and I hadn't thought about that in terms of like the violence of it too. And your choice of the word shooting, and I think of too, with photography, people talk about like shooting a photograph, the violence of taking and shooting a photograph, but translating that and kind of pushing that even further to the violence of actually using a gun, right? A staple gun.
A staple gun,
Yeah.
There's actually a video of her, I believe, actually doing the work, and she's she's standing over the wood, these huge pieces of wood, and and she has like these goggles, and she has like ear stuff, well protected, so she doesn't get, I guess, hurt by these. But the title is Shooting Back. So in a way, it reminds me a little bit of Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks has this theory where she talks about talking back. So gaining voice, the individual who has been presented as the other actually talks back to the oppressor. So this is a way she's kind of talking back to the oppressor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for those questions. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, Phoebe. If you want to unmute yourself.
Yes. So is this like white and blue or gray paint on top of the staples?
No, they're just staples.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just staples. Yeah. And I guess the shine that we get is because of light reflecting on and off. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I have a couple questions here.
Sure.
I don't want to monopolize. What percentage of the quote unquote Caribbean diaspora it is made up of Haitians? And has that changed over, like, from the 1930s to now? And did war, or in the case of the volcanic eruption, affect affect this?
Yeah. Well, that's a really good question. And I, what I do know a little bit about in terms of migration and immigration. I mean, I would say that, in the early part of the 18th century, late 18th century, there were, a few, sizable number of Haitian folks coming into the US, and also Paris, coming into the US and also Europe for work or for education. During the Jazz age, there were quite a bit of Caribbean populations traveling to the States and traveling to Europe, et cetera, traveling to Cuba, et cetera. I would say around also the 20s, 30s, and 40s. But I think the large group of Haitians begin to come during the Duvalier moment, during the moment of their rule, because of the difficulties and basically the heinous nature of their rule. So a lot of individuals who were resisting left Haiti and came to the US or went to Europe or went to Canada. Canada also. Because of language and all that. And then around the 1980s, there's another shift because of economic desires. So we have Haitians and other individuals of the Caribbean also kind of coming to other places and being pulled by economics, as well as being pushed away because of economics. So I would think those are probably around the 50s and the 80s are probably the major. And since the earthquake, as we know, in 2010, there has been also a large group of Haitians coming, fleeing Haiti because of the devastation that the earthquake created. And to some extent continues, that continues as well.
So people didn't go to Central or South America. Not
a huge. There were some who went to, let's say, Venezuela, because again, for probably educational reasons. There are recently there are a lot of I would say a good portion of Haitians in Mexico. Brazil and Mexico. Again, I think that's coming more from the earthquake.
I see.
Yeah, that's coming more from the earthquake. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine, I'm doing this project, the Fowler, and she was saying next time we can travel, we can visit, you got to come down so we can go to Tijuana, because there's a great Haitian restaurant there. And I thought, Tijuana? Haitian restaurant? She goes, so we'll see.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer more questions. And
I have one more question. Do you feel
Sure.
like, did you see a kind of major change in sort of both form and content in Haitian art before and after the earthquake? Do you feel like artists were have been responding to the earthquake or the aftermath of the earthquake in the past 10 years differently, or do you see it sort of different?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Haitians and artists in Haiti are in a variety of different ways. Particularly the younger artists have been responding and have been, painting or drawing and trying to visually narrate, let's say, the traumatic moment that took place. But I think a lot of even the diasporic artists, Haitian artists, are also trying to speak about a contemporary moment. And I think what is interesting, and when I was looking at the exhibition that you have at the gallery, Shannon, and I was thinking about these artists that I've been interested in, I think one of the things that tie them all is this desire to visually to present their history visually, present moments in histories that are oftentimes are not necessarily put and made clear. So I'm thinking of the Carrie Mae Weems piece, and I'm thinking of even the Kara Walker piece, which I didn't really say much, but I thought visually it says it all. And reading Lord and reading Catlett's quotes really gets us to think about this moment in history, and really getting us to think about the aftermath, if you will, of legacies of enslavement, but also legacies of something like the Duvaliers. I mean, how are these legacies lived contemporarily? And we're seeing the effect of that now. You know, we're seeing the effect of that now. So what I liked about the exhibition, what it allowed us to think about these artists at that moment, but it also allowed us to think about how they're still relevant contemporarily. The ideas that they bring forth are still relevant contemporarily. So I think that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I know, and I feel like I was telling a class earlier today that every time I look at the Carrie Mae Weems, depending on where we have fallen like politically and socially, especially in relationship to the election, that I read it differently and I feel it differently.
Yeah.
In terms of its message.
Yeah. And Zoe
Charlton.
Thing, Zoe Charlton's, and when I was looking at her piece too, I was thinking of Sibylla's piece in a way, the kind of layering, Zoe Charlton's work. Also, there's a mask, I believe. There's an African mask there, and so does Sibylla have that. So thinking about the various types of images and symbols that artists are using to convey particular histories, to make connections between particular histories. And even thinking about Emma Amos's piece, you know, looking at it, we see these beautiful images, you know, these beautiful photographs of, you know, dapper men and dapper women, but right next to it, there's an image of a man who's recently been lynched. So putting those two histories together, and that helps us think more expansively of, I think, the idea of Black modernity, but the idea of also Black history.
Yeah, exactly. I have one more question that popped up in my chat, and I think you may have mentioned this, but in some other examples of the staple portraits, you said Malcolm X, but who else?
Oh, she's Martin Luther King. Okay. She is Malcolm X. Those are the only two that I can think of. But if you just Google her, Sasha Ubeo, bunch of stuff will come up.
H-U-B-E-R-T?
S-A-C-H-A-H-U-B-E-R. Hubert.
Okay.
Huber.
Okay. Great. Well,
yeah. She's also a performance artist and has done amazing performance pieces. And I think, she's done amazing performance pieces. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think I will conclude it there unless there are any other questions. Like I said, thank you so much. That was a wonderful, wonderful talk, and I learned many new things about many new artists.
Okay.
So I appreciate that, and again, thank you all for coming and for attending and sharing your afternoon with us. It's such a treat to see interested faces. So
yeah. Thank you so much all for coming, because I know sometimes we can be totally zoomed out, because I know, I had 2 classes today and meetings and all that, but I was excited. I'm always excited to talk about art, but thank you so much for coming and listening. Thank you.